This week I got to talk with L.S. Stratton about her new, very fun Hollywood thriller, In Deadly Company. I love a Hollywood thriller. You guys all know that. So I was super excited when I saw that she was writing one, and it was really fun to talk to her about the inspiration for it. Here's what it's about. A year after the blowout birthday celebration she organized accidentally ended in the death of her nightmare one-percenter boss, Xander Chambers, Nicole Underwood thought she was setting the public record straight by agreeing to consult on a feature film based on her story. But on the set in LA, she watches in frustration as her experiences are persistently sidelined by inappropriate casting and frequent bizarre script changes. Nicole is haunted by the events of the fateful house party and visions of her now deceased boss. Xander had been unfit to lead the company his mother, famed entrepreneur Bridget Chambers, had founded and built to Fortune 500 status until her untimely death in a car accident several months prior. After being Bridget's favorite assistant, Nicole had honored her mentor by staying on to keep Xander organized and on task despite his relentless partying. When he wanted her to plan his wild bash, Nicole saw an opportunity to probe the people closest to the Chambers family and learn if Bridget's crash was truly a simple tragedy. But Nicole, who just wanted to be the best assistant possible, could not have foreseen the terrible consequences of her actions. This thriller is so much fun. There's a really meta element to the plot structure of her in the present timeline, watching this movie be made about what happened in the past, and then we get the past flashbacks as well. So you can kind of try to piece together the inconsistencies as she's on set with what actually happened in the past, and it just really worked for me. If you like satirical humor about Hollywood, if you loved Knives Out, if you love Clue, you're going to love this one. That being said, let's hear from L.S. Stratton. So I am super excited to talk about In Deadly Company, but I do always want to get to know you, the authors, a little bit before that. Okay. So what was your journey to writing? Did you always know you wanted to write, or did you have an idea one day where you're like, I have to start? What was it like for you?
Well, I think deep down I always wanted to be a writer, but I didn't know if I could be a professional writer, as in do it as a career. I had been scribbling stories in my composition notebooks since I was probably 11 or 12. And the stories were getting longer and longer and longer and longer. So I wouldn't let a lot of people read it, but I let my mom read my stories. And after a few years, she started to say, "Lachelle," that's my real name. You are getting really good at this. And I'm like, yeah, sure. And when I was in college, there was a first-time writers contest by BET Books, which is now defunct. And they were looking for romance stories for an anthology of first-time writers. And the only requirement was you had never been professionally published. So my mom read about it and she was like, "Have you considered this?" And I said, "There's no way I would ever win this competition because it's a national competition and it's a professional publisher." But I thought about it and I thought about it and I thought about it. And then I was like, all right, well, at least try it. And I ended up submitting my story maybe a few days before the deadline. I think it was postmarked, basically a day before the final date. And I got a call at school saying that I was one of the finalists. And that's when I had my aha moment of wow, I can finally take these stories outside of my little notebook and do it professionally. And I've been doing writing as a fiction author off and on since then.
That's awesome that she just kept reading them and was like, maybe you can go after that, because you feel like you kind of hear the opposite where parents are like,
well, yeah,
writing.
Well, and that's the thing. I don't think she thought of it as something I could do exclusively necessarily.
Right.
Even though I will say, back in the 90s, early 2000s, it felt like a lot more authors who were full-time. This is what they did. And I meet a lot more. There's no, I'm juggling another job at the same time. So for me, it was just like, wow, I never thought it was a possibility that someone outside of my family could take me seriously as a
Yeah.
writer. And then to have professionals in the industry validate me at like 19, I was like, okay, so maybe this means that
Yeah.
I really can't do this.
That's awesome. Yeah, I
Yeah.
didn't realize you were that young still as well at that point.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, so it sounds like that was romance related,
Hmm.
what you're talking about there. And
Yeah.
then I know you write young adult as well, and
Yeah. I
then you
just
also
started. Just started.
okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so that was this what is it called again? I just saw it
Sundown
on.
Girls, and that'll be my YA debut, and it comes
Okay.
out in January.
Okay.
Hmm.
What draws you to, like, I know YA is not entirely a genre itself, like
Yeah.
there's also specific versions, but what draws you to thrillers? Do you still write any romance? And then what made you want to do YA?
Well, okay. First, I made the transition from romance to thrillers because I was in romance the longest because I was getting bored. I I had
Yeah.
done it, like I said, I had done it since I was 19. Um, and the subplots in my romances were starting to get as big as the actual romance storyline.
Mm,
And I was starting to have more fun with those. And I
mm,
noticed that a lot of those subplots were mysteries or thrillers. They or had those elements to it. Like someone is shot and everyone's trying to figure out, well, who shot them.
yeah.
Or someone has their money stolen and now they have to go on a cross country trip to track down who stole their money. And
Hmm.
so after a while, I was like, I think I should just bite the bullet and write a thriller and see how, once again, because even though you've been writing for years, you never know how your work is going to be received, especially when you're starting a new genre. I
Hmm.
wanted to see how people responded. And a lot of readers really liked it. So
Hmm.
that's when I decided from that point on, okay, I'm going to do mystery thrillers.
Yeah.
I started to do YA. That was a fluke because I had attempted a YA and my agent, we went on submission with it and it wasn't received well. The
Mm,
response was mostly like, I don't think you have the voice for YA. And I'm like, okay, well, maybe I'm just meant to write an adult story. But the
yeah.
plot for the Sundown Girls was originally supposed to be an adult who's thinking about the past. Um,
Oh.
but you start to realize, and they'll even tell you as an author, if most of the story is happening in the past, why are you starting with the perspective of the present?
Yeah.
So that's when I was scared because I'm like, oh no, now I'm going to have to write from the perspective of a 16-year-old girl. Um,
Yeah.
but I was like, if this is what the story wants to be, I can't make
Mm-hmm.
it anything else, or it's not
Yeah.
gonna be as fluid. So I said, okay, I will attempt to write this story from the perspective of a 16-year-old girl. And when I submitted it to my agent, she was like, I think this is one of the best stories you've ever written. And I was like, really?
Oh, that's
So
amazing.
yeah, so we went on submission with it, and it was we got a couple of editors who were interested. It was a much different story than from the last time around, and they were like, each of them were like, we're gonna have to make some changes, which I'm like, that's normal, but
Right.
they were really excited. And so it was different this time in that someone was excited as opposed to like, I don't know.
Right.
So the final product went through a lot of editing, but I'm happy with what it is. And
Yeah.
my editor is happy with what it is. So I'm
That's
excited.
good. I
Yeah.
know. I was just talking to, so there's kind of like a fun journey of how I got to your books, but I actually have this first one, The Not So Perfect
Yeah.
Strangers.
Yeah.
Um, I need to look. I don't know how far back it was, but in the early stages of the podcast with Gare, he
Mm-hmm.
read this one and was like,
Mm-hmm.
this is so good, I have to send it to you, it's amazing. And so then Gare and Steph and I loved this one. We talked about it a bunch. Was this 2022? I
Or
think.
I wrote it in 20. I think it came out in early 2023, like
Okay,
March of
maybe that's
that.
what it is.
Yeah.
So I'm hoping I can find it because those are always fun to like pair up together. So
Yeah.
that was the first one I read.
Hmm.
And then Steph read Do What Godmother Says. And I just like sometimes if I don't see it on NetGalley, then it's like I don't end up going back to it because I'm
Yeah.
doing so many things for like
I
pub
understand.
pub date releases.
Yeah.
But then it was cool though because I just got into audiobooks, or my brain finally clicked in and can listen to them and
Hmm.
absorb it. And so that was one of those where I've been like going back and like listening to ones that maybe I didn't catch when they were coming out. So I really, really enjoyed that one. And then In Deadly Company, which is what we're going
Yeah.
to get into here sooner, I was like, oh my gosh, a Hollywood thriller. Like, I'm going to love this. So I think I like read In Deadly Company and then listened to Do What Godmother Says like
Yeah.
right after it. So I've had a very LS Stratton month. But all of that to say, then Steph sent me this YA. So like we just are all like constantly talking about your books is where I'm headed with
Yay.
this. And she was like, I know you don't read tons of YA, but like this one sounds pretty good. So now she and I are like super intrigued. It looks like it comes out in
Yes.
January of
So you have
2026. Is that what
time. You
it's?
have time.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Right. There's some time to fit it in. It does sound really good though. So
Yeah.
I'm excited for that one.
Yeah.
Do you, for your writing process, do you plot ahead of time? Do you start writing and see where it goes? What is that part like for you?
Well, I think now I do a lot more plotting, or at least I have to do like the basic overview of what I think the story is going to be,
Mm. Mm-hmm.
the major beats, but inevitably the final version is not that.
Yeah.
What I try to do, what's more important for my process, is to write a few chapters that I get a feel for the voice, the
Mm-hmm.
tone, the pacing. Is this like In Deadly Company was to me it was a book that went boo 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 boo, but Do What
Mm-hmm.
Godmother Says, I knew it was going to be a gothic thriller, so I was like, this is going to
Yeah.
be slow. And you're going to have patience with this because it's a very slow build because that's what the genre calls for. So that
Mm-hmm.
part of the process is important to me. If I can't get the tone or feel for the characters and get excited for the story, even if I come up with the basic plot, then I know
Mm-hmm.
that, okay, I need to go back and figure out, like I said with Sundown Girls, I plotted
Mm-hmm.
it from the perspective of an adult woman and it seemed to work. But then when I was writing it, I was
Yeah.
like, you keep doing these flashbacks. Nothing's
Mm.
happening in the present. Why do we keep doing flashbacks? And then I'm like, all right,
Yeah.
the story hasn't completely changed now.
Yeah.
So that's usually my process. And then I start writing once I'm comfortable with the characters, the tone.
Mm-hmm.
I start writing chapters. And with mysteries, you have to sprinkle in like little details along the way that will help develop the mystery. So I started to
Mm-hmm.
think about that too. And now I'm starting to break down chapters, say, okay, we have to include this
Mm.
element here and we have to include this,
Yeah.
see this here, so that this makes sense later when you do the big reveal. And that's normally how I go. But I'm never going to be the person with the post-it notes, is like, or the spreadsheets. I wish I
Yeah.
was, but I can't. Like, I'm not
More
that
people say that
organized.
they aren't than they are. And then it's always followed by, I should do this, or I wish I wasn't. And I'm like, you're writing books. Like, clearly it works for you.
Well, I guess, but I always like the people who was like, how do you do it? Like, how do you? It seems so huge in the beginning that I
Yeah.
think my mind would explode if I
Yeah.
tried to think of all that stuff from the very beginning.
Yeah. That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
It's so fascinating to me too, because I've had like the genre conversation
Hmm.
with a few different authors where like some people are like, I don't know what the genre is, I write it, and then like my editor tells me like what
Really?
genre I wrote, kind
Huh.
of. Or kind of like, so the one that I was just talking with Rebecca McKenna about it, and hers is kind of that way. And then I remember talking to John Fram about it. I really liked his book No Road Home,
Hmm.
from I think last year.
Hmm.
And he's like, I don't set out, because like I asked him what he liked about horror, and he was like, I don't set out to write horror, I just kind of like write a story and then people are like, yeah, this would be shelved with horror, which like the
Huh.
horror happens more at the end, kind of, I guess.
Okay.
So it's always interesting in how sometimes like you don't want to combine something to or confine something to a genre because maybe it is more than that. So it's kind
Yeah.
of fascinating to me that like with Sundown Girls, you like there was clearly a story that was there for you.
Yes.
And it was kind of like in the writing of it, you were like, oh, this kind of just needs to be with her when she's 16 years old.
Yeah.
I'm just always fascinated by how stories end
Yeah.
up coming together
Well,
sometimes.
and that's what I if it were for other writers, I would say like let the story take the lead. If you try,
Mm,
I think readers can tell the difference when something was like crammed into a genre or crammed into a
yes.
trend, and you're like, it doesn't feel natural. It feels like
Yeah.
you're ticking off a few check marks so that you fit, but
Yeah.
it's not flowing. So for
Mm-hmm.
me, I'm like, I'm not going to try to make it something that it isn't. And if it wants to
Mm-hmm.
be something else, then I'm like, okay, so I guess this is
Yeah.
what we're doing now.
Yeah. Yeah. That makes sense.
Yeah.
I'm obviously it's why I have a whole podcast about it, but I'm so fascinated by like, yeah, like how ideas come to people, all the different ways you can write a book, just
Yeah.
kind of all of it is
Yeah.
fascinating. With In Deadly Company,
Hmm.
what was your like initial inspiration point?
Well, since I was probably a little kid, they used to have like this channel called DC 20 in the Washington,
Mm,
D.C. area, and they would play the movie Clue. It felt like every other
yeah.
weekend. And I was a huge fan of it. I thought it was hilarious. I loved the characters. I loved the dialogue. I loved the interplay. I loved the mystery too.
Mm-hmm.
And then when I got older, I think a lot of people are fans of the Knives Out series.
Yes.
Um, we love the character, we love the detective, and we love
Mm-hmm.
like the social commentary too. It
Yes.
and it says stuff, but it's not ham fisted with it, or at least
Mm-hmm.
I never felt it was. And
Yeah.
so after writing two very serious stories back to back,
Mm-hmm.
Do What Godmother Says and Not
Yeah.
So Perfect Strangers, where it was just intense. It was really intense. That I
Mm-hmm.
was like, I want to do something fun.
Yeah.
I want to do something that'll make me laugh, that makes me feel how I feel when I watch those films. And so that's when
Yeah.
I came up with In Deadly Company, that I felt like it has Hollywood personality,
Mm-hmm.
eccentric personalities, like
Mm-hmm.
characters, snarky observation, and some social commentary. Not a lot, but some of
Yes.
it. So
Yes.
that's the inspiration behind the book.
Yeah. Yeah. As a mood reader, especially, I was like, oh, this is gonna be fun to see like her take on the like fun. It's very summery,
Yes.
almost like a beach read kind of thriller.
Yeah.
And I always love Hollywood, and I always love snarky main characters. So like, I was I was enjoying this one a lot, and I
Yeah.
was telling you a little bit before. I felt like those were the vibes from reading the synopsis. So when I was like having like a heavier work week, I was like, I just need a thriller that's gonna be like fun. So it like
Yeah.
slotted in perfectly for me there.
Yeah.
And I think Hollywood, like you're saying, is so fun for all kinds of stories, but
Yeah.
especially thrillers, because it's like there's just so many personalities and
I
there's so
know.
much like ruthless ambition all over the
Yeah,
place.
yeah, that part, like even her experiences on the set, and she's
Mm-hmm.
trying to like get the movie to go in a certain direction, and it keeps getting derailed by all of these things, which
Yes.
to me, I felt like I could see that happening. It's like, why did
Yeah.
you cast this person? And like, why did you change these lines? It's like, I thought we
Uh-huh.
agreed on this, and or the producers
Yeah.
want me to do this. And so like she's encountering that in the present while we're seeing what's going on, the zaniness and craziness that went on in the past.
Yes.
Yeah.
So this is one of my favorite parts about it was the plot structure.
Yeah.
So like you just kind of mentioned, we have like this scandalous death that happened
Mm-hmm.
in the past,
Mm-hmm.
and then in her present, they're doing a loosely based on like a lot of the
Yeah.
based on movies are.
Yeah.
Um, so it's super meta. They're like now
Yes.
documenting that in the present timeline. And
Hmm.
so it's kind of fun because you're like, at least you're trying to like pay attention to the inconsistencies too, to be
Yes.
like, oh, what did they change here and why would they change it? So
Yeah.
like the suspense is so much higher. So did you go again, kind of that question of like, how did you decide on like flashbacks and actually going backwards? Did you know you wanted to do that plot structure when you
Hmm.
started, or did it kind of happen naturally as you wrote?
I knew I wanted to do flashbacks more so because I wanted to tell it from the different perspectives of the people
Mm.
involved. Like, I knew that the fallout basically happens to Nicole, who's the executive assistant and main character in the story. But I wanted the perspectives of people who knew things that Nicole didn't know, that
Mm.
were going
Mm-hmm.
on at the mansion where all of this chaos happens. So I wanted it for the perspective of her seeing it on the movie set, these reenactment of events, and then it's like the clue, what really happened. And so
Yes.
you switch to the go
Yeah.
to
Yes.
from the perspective of the person who's actually witnessing it, the interaction between the characters or actual deaths that take place,
Mm-hmm.
and that bouncing back and forth. Like I said, it's that interplay that I really loved from the movies that I
Mm-hmm.
thought would be fun to reinterpret in a book.
Yeah. Yeah. Were you ever like on Hollywood sets? Was any of like the Hollywood satire coming from any of your experiences?
Actually, no, but I watched the only interactions that I've had so far with Hollywood is like option and like having the first
Mm.
meeting with producers. But outside of that, no. So I had to watch a lot of on YouTube, they have this series called Studio Binder where they actually talk
Ooh.
about what it's like to make a movie from the beginning, like pre-production,
Ooh.
production, post-production, distribution, and they'll do a breakdown of like even like what cameras would be used, what does a script look like even how she I have in the book, she's complaining about the pages. Like she knows there's a change because
Mm.
the page colors are
Yes.
changing.
The
And
color changes.
yeah, and
Yes.
I was like, but that's what actually happens on a movie set. Like they
Yes.
each change has a different color, and people on the movie set understand that like this page color means this is the new one changed from the previous one. So including little
Yes.
details like that from
Mm-hmm.
YouTube series that really talk about filmmaking, to me, it helped enhance the story, or at least hopefully create
Mm-hmm.
a little bit more realism for laymen. And I'm sure there are people in Hollywood who's like, that
Mm-hmm.
wouldn't happen. That's not how it goes. And I'm like, well,
Oh, it's also
I
fiction.
didn't yeah, exactly. It's allowed me some literary license to do what I want for the story.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that detail specifically, it's so funny you brought that up because we did some like behind the scenes filming for a comedian named Miss Pat who has a show on BET,
Mm-hmm.
and we were on set with her for that first season, just like capturing it happening, and I was her assistant so that I could be there
Mm-hmm.
to do video because it was peak COVID, like
Oh
insanity.
wow.
But when I read the different script color page, I was like felt the anxiety in my
You're like,
chest
what
of having to like
What
run across this warehouse to get the
exactly.
because she had the wrong color script, and I was like, oh
Exactly.
god, that was terrible.
And that's what Nicole feels every time. She's like, oh my God, it's
Yes.
another color. They changed it again.
Yeah. Yeah, I
Yeah.
definitely I love Hollywood. I love watching TV and movies. I love talking about them, but that experience taught me that I am an indoor Kate. I am an introvert, and I will not be someone on set. So it was a good experience to have, but like whew, it's
I
next
can
level.
I can believe you. I think it would be
Yeah.
anxiety inducing, at least for me.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah, the intensity is just like everyone is like ready to blow up, which
Yeah.
again is like what works really well
Yeah.
for the thriller part. um, with the Chambers family. So they are powerful, they are extremely wealthy, there's some corruption going on.
Yeah.
How did you approach writing that family in a way where like it still feels like real people would act this way too?
Yeah. Yeah. I I can't say the name of the person who would be
Yeah.
a Xander, but I think people pretty much pick up on who is the
Mm-hmm.
inspiration behind someone like him.
Mm-hmm.
And the family in itself is like, if you think about like the Murdochs or who inspired like the Succession series, I'm not
Yeah.
I'm not treading new ground when it comes to like the interplay. These people are supposed to be in a family business, but it's all
Mm-hmm.
this backstabbing that's going on in the background because
Mm-hmm.
a lot of the family members are narcissists. And even one character points it
Yes.
out. It's like, you don't have to do this. If you're so miserable with each other, you don't need to be here.
Right.
But it's the money and the power that keeps them locked in this interplay with each other. And
Yes.
ultimately that leads to much more bad things than what they expect.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I
Yeah.
totally agree.
Yeah.
With Nicole, obviously we talked about she has like a very snarky inner monologue that is amazing. And she's also kind of survived the past. Basically she has a lot of layers going on.
Yes.
So how did you kind of craft her to be the like main character for this story?
Well, I knew in the present tense that she would be someone who was probably she's dealing with post trauma. So
Mm-hmm.
by the time you see her in the present, she's not as confident. She even says it
Mm-hmm.
like, I'm not the person I was. She dresses different. Um,
Mm-hmm.
she's not quite sure what the future has for her. And but she's trying to muddle her way through it. It's like, okay, maybe this film, once the record is set straight, will help give a clearer sense of direction of what I need to do. When we go to the past, she's much more confident. She's the executive assistant to a CEO. She has a lot of
Mm-hmm.
experience. She's organizing behind the scenes
Mm-hmm.
a lot of things. And so we see her when she felt like she was in her element, when she
Mm-hmm.
was doing what she was meant to do. And ultimately by the end, she finds out, okay, well, maybe I wasn't meant to, that path wasn't meant for me after all. And so
Yeah.
I wanted to show her evolving, that
Mm.
she's going through this movie and she's trying to figure out like, how do I course correct? And ultimately she figures out the movie isn't it. The movie can't be
Mm-hmm.
the thing that brings you back to the confidence you were before. It has to be something else that you need
Mm-hmm.
to address, that you need to change. And I wanted to be able to convey that
Mm-hmm.
by jumping between the present and the past, so the readers could see the
Yeah.
difference between her.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm trying not to say any spoilers
I
because that's
know.
what was coming to
Even me,
mind
I
with a
was like,
couple of
okay,
things.
how do I word this without
I
giving the
know.
plot away? Yeah.
Yes, I know that's the trick with some of this stuff. But yeah,
Yeah.
you feel that there's actually a difference in the
Yeah.
past and the present. And sometimes what's nice, not that I want anyone to be traumatized, but we are reading thrillers.
Yeah.
Is like that is how a normal person or a more average person would be processing stuff. Like
Yeah.
we all don't just like move on and we're our
Yeah.
same selves after
Yeah.
really intense stuff happens. So
Yeah.
I did really like that contrast
Yeah.
basically. Her relationship with Bridget, who's like the matriarch of this wealthy family, is also very complicated. What was writing their relationship like
Well, I
without
think
spoilers?
she kind of saw Bridget as kind of like a second mother.
Mm.
And to the point that even her mom is like, she's not your mother. So,
Yes.
um, because she felt like she respected her. She was someone she wanted to be. She was
Mm-hmm.
someone that like she will guide me in the direction I need to go. She will steer her in the right direction, take her in the direction I need to go. But that trust is complicated. The things that she does as her surrogate mother is complicated.
Mm-hmm.
And we
Mm-hmm.
see how that impacts the story. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, it is. It's so difficult to like it. Well, it's kind of like the don't meet your heroes type conversation where
Yes.
it's like it's
Yes.
so much like something on the exterior can be like, oh, I want to be like that woman, or like, oh, she's
Mm-hmm.
inspiring, I would want to do this. And then sometimes you get up close and you're like, oh, this is what it costs to be like
Exactly.
this.
Exactly.
And you're like, baby, I don't actually want that.
Exactly. And yeah,
Yeah.
so she's like, she's definitely, it's like Bridget, she is definitely a powerful woman. She's a smart woman. She's a
Mm-hmm.
capable woman. But in order to be who she is, are you willing to go those same lengths? And Bridget,
Yeah.
and Nicole has to decide if she wants to do that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. Um, the other part is, or another part I enjoyed is Nicole is like kind of haunted
Yes.
by Xander like a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
Not like horror level supernatural kind of stuff, but it's
Mm-hmm.
there.
Yes.
And I feel like it functions really well in like a we could almost say psychological horror way,
Mm-hmm.
because I'm realizing that's what I kind of love in horror specifically. So what kind of led you to including that part?
Well, I figured, like I said, that she would probably have some post traumatic stress disorder from everything that
Mm-hmm.
she witnessed. So it would not be abnormal for her to have like just slight, like, did I see that type of things that
Yeah.
she's battling. And in addition to that, it kind of serves as a metaphor. Like she is being haunted
Mm-hmm.
physically by the specter of what happened and mentally by the specter of what happened. And it'll take a lot for her to get rid of that haunting or get rid of those
Yeah.
things that she's still dragging from the past.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why he is a
Yeah.
physical representation of, yeah, you went to therapy, yeah, you may have taken that medication, but it's obvious you haven't let all of that go.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Totally. Another thing that like functions well for both Hollywood and thrillers is like the truth of what's happening versus like the image that everyone else is
Yes.
seeing,
Yes.
which comes together in a lot of different ways near the end as well. But was there something about that tension that was fun for you to write in?
Oh, absolutely. I love what like kind of hate watching Lifetime movies that do like based on real events,
Yes.
and you're like, that didn't happen, or certainly didn't happen that way. And so there are many
Right.
occasions as Nicole is watching things on set that she'll even say, "So why do I have a bandage on my head in this scene?" Or they're like, "It just felt right for the moment," or she's like, "No, we
Yeah.
didn't. That person didn't have that accent." And so
Mm-hmm.
to me, it's always funny because I guess for the salaciousness that Hollywood might want, it's
Mm-hmm.
not a documentary, and she has to come
Mm-hmm.
to terms with that. Um,
Yeah.
and I think most people who see based on or inspired by a true story, you know that a lot of license was taken by the time you actually see it on
Yeah.
screen.
Yeah. That's what like I feel like that was one of my like bigger letdowns like more into adulthood is realizing like I get it because they're trying to do entertainment factor, but like the one that's
Mm-hmm.
coming to mind right now for some reason was I really enjoyed the biopic Bohemian Rhapsody
Mm-hmm.
about Queen.
Mm-hmm.
but then so then I get like super obsessed and like am researching everything after it, and I'm like, they changed so
So
many
much.
things
Yeah.
though, and like
Hmm.
you think it's just some stuff, but like it's not. And
Yeah.
so yeah, it's just complex in a lot of different ways, because then it's like there are a lot of people where like they think that's history because
Yes.
they, or factual because they
Yeah.
watched a biopic and they just like have these facts in their head that are like not
Exactly.
facts.
No, exactly. And I
Yeah,
think that's
even
what
with
she's, go ahead.
even with like the who is cast to play Nicole, like at the beginning when she's like seeing her, she's like, this doesn't look like me. I think you mentioned that it's kind of like the culturally ambiguous or
Yes.
somewhat ambiguous casting that Hollywood likes
Yes.
to do too. And you're
Yes.
just like, why'd you need to do that?
Exactly. That she's like, she's a black woman, and so she's seeing this woman and
Mm,
she's like, I'm sure you're a great person, but I don't
right.
understand why we couldn't cast a black actress for this. And so
Yes.
she's encountering this stuff over and over again, that she's like, this is not going to be the story that I wanted.
Yeah.
And it's obvious.
Very. Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, without talking about the end, did you know the ending you were working toward, or did you like find it as you were writing? I'm always intrigued by that too.
I thought I knew, and then as I was writing it, I'm like, no, I'll change it a little bit, so
Okay,
that
yeah.
it's not, it's a little bit more complex than what I originally had, because of the way I had it. Then I'm like, I think people could pretty much figure this out from the beginning, but
Mm,
adding another element, you're like, oh, really? That's how
mm-hmm.
it happens. So
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. I felt that
Yeah.
that was more
I
interesting.
Yeah. Yeah, there's some things that like if you're just a thriller reader, you just pick up on more
Yes.
things. But there are a lot of reveals, especially kind of in like most of Act 3, I guess, is probably where, most reveals show up anyway.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, I just had fun figuring it all out. And I had seen the blurb that said like knives out, and maybe the blurb, or not, it's not a blurb, it's the whatever, like the first marketing
Yeah.
copy sentence on the synopsis.
Hmm.
And one, sometimes I'm wary of people that say knives
I
out, because
know.
like sometimes you get into it and you're like, just because there are like multiple people here doesn't mean you're like doing knives out
Yeah.
necessarily. But it felt very similar to that once I started
Yeah.
reading. So like I feel like I would have said it even if it wasn't in the synopsis.
Good.
I do just love those. It's so fun, like kind of getting to the end
Yeah.
when it's like, oh, by the way, this is what was happening like this
Yeah.
whole time that you were paying attention to all this
It's
other
this.
stuff.
It's like,
So
ta-da!
yes,
I
yeah.
knew, like with seasoned thriller readers and mystery readers, they're gonna
Hmm.
guess some. And even the
Yeah.
ones that was like, I guessed the ending, and I was like, yeah, you probably did, but you probably guessed other endings too. So it could be a grab
Yep.
bag of like, I can be this, because I do it too.
Yes.
Then I'm like, I'm just
Right.
waiting to see, was I right? Which
Yes.
one was the one that I guessed?
Yeah. I saw a meme earlier this morning that was talking about like it was like it's like some angry meme. I can't even remember what the image technically was, but it was like readers when they don't figure out the plot twist. And so it's like someone who's angry, and then it's like readers when they do figure out the plot twist, and it's someone
Exactly.
who's angry.
It is so
And
funny
I'm
to
like, you
me.
do, yeah.
Yeah, because with Not So Perfect Strangers, I got feedback from like, or Goodreads, there was some people were like, I didn't guess the ending, but that's it. I was like, I don't know what to say to
Yeah, what do you want?
that. And I'm like, but you didn't guess it though. If it was that simple, why didn't you guess it? And so we were like, that's
Right.
it.
Yeah. That's like the hard thing for me, because it's like there are also and sometimes I'll even say it in reviews just so
Mm-hmm.
like people have the correct expectations going into books, because that's
Mm-hmm.
like, as I'm sure you know, that's the other hard thing sometimes, is sometimes you may dislike a book because you really were in a mood for something else, but like
Yeah.
the synopsis or someone else made you think something else. So sometimes I will be like, I was pretty sure where we were headed, but I still
Hmm.
really enjoyed getting there because like
Yeah.
that still can be very fun.
Hmm.
So sometimes I even mention that, but it's like thriller readers sometimes it's like what did you want? Like because I would prefer that there were definitely like some crumbs that could have helped me get to
Yes.
that solution because
Yeah.
that makes it seem realistic or yeah, realistic, like congruent with everything else that was happening. So I'm like in some ways I hope I'm figuring out like 65% of the endings like before I get completely to the ending
Yeah.
because it means like there was enough
It's like,
there.
yeah, and they weren't
And then some
cheating.
people are just pissed if there's not a twist. And I'm like, not every thriller needs a twist either.
I would agree. And to me, like I
Mm-hmm.
have read books, and I won't say which book this was, where it was like leading you in a certain direction, and then it suddenly introduced a paranormal element where there's like, and then
Oh,
that person's
yes.
spirit inhabited the other person's body, and that was the person committed murder. And I'm like, but we never established any of these elements before we got to that part of the story.
Yes.
To me, that's cheating
Yes.
because
You
I'm
are
like,
speaking our language. We have gone on rants about this.
it's like, no, if it was paranormal elements, then we should have established this chapters
Yes.
ago. You don't get to suddenly
Yes.
like just like, but that to me that means you couldn't think of an ending. It's like, no, the elements were always there. No, it wasn't. If it was
I
paranormal, you should have
agree.
told me I was reading a paranormal mystery.
Yes. It should have felt a little bit spooky, or it should
Yeah,
have felt, yeah, like there are just things that should have been happening. Otherwise, because
yeah.
otherwise you do. I similarly have a couple that I always think of during this discussion where I'm like, you just didn't know how you wanted to end it, huh?
Exactly. It's like, and it was
Yeah.
this. You're pulling a Scooby Doo, but
Yeah.
you never established anything
Yes.
that would make us go in that direction. So yeah, to me that's
Yes.
cheating. That's cheating.
I
So
agree.
I would much
I'm with
rather,
you on
like you
that.
said, have the sprinkles there. I can guess
Yeah.
probably half to majority of it, and then there
Yeah.
may be a twist, or it could be like,
Yeah.
oh, okay. It's like I didn't guess that, but
Right.
that's cool. Yeah.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
agree. Yeah. Well, there's no paranormal element. We'll just give a
No,
spoiler here. There is
no,
a concrete explanation for what
exactly.
happens
No
in Deadly
spirits.
Company. Yes, not this one.
Yeah.
Um well, I loved it.
Oh,
Anyone
thank
who
you.
needs a beach read, a summary read, a fun thriller, like this is the one you're looking for if that's the mood that you're in.
Yeah.
But I do always ask at the end too if you've read anything recently that you loved,
If I read anything recently that I love, I've
or not
started.
even recently. Just
Yeah. Um, I I sent you a note about Love You to Death, and I can't remember the name of
mm-hmm.
the author. I think you had her on the show.
Christina Dotson. Yeah.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
yeah. I've started reading that. It's also kind of a snarky personality type of
Yes,
story. Um, and so I'm really enjoying that. I've been listening to that on audiobook because I'm on deadline and I
I heard
need
the
that.
audio is fantastic.
Yeah. And so I can't read as much. Well, like read.
Yeah,
I know
I
people
get
are like,
that.
that is reading. I was like, okay, I can't
I never know how to
physically read.
delineate it either
I
now.
know. I can't physically read, but I try to listen to books on audiobooks when I
Yeah,
have a choice. And so I've been listening to and enjoying that one. And so I'm hoping
yeah.
that I can start another book, and I'm interested in seeing what she does next.
I am
Yeah.
too.
Yeah.
Yeah, I really, really loved how voice driven it was. That's the other
Yes.
thing in thrillers. Like, voice and tone, like, are just as
Absolutely.
fun for me as maybe a well placed twist. Like, you're
I would
spending so
agree.
much time
In someone's head.
in their heads.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. That's like, I
yeah,
want to have a fun, or I want to at least be engaged while
yes,
I'm following their story. I'm
figuring it
invested in
out.
what's happening. So yeah, I think she does a great
Yeah,
job of that.
yeah, yeah. For anyone who is, it made me wish it. the audio wasn't on NetGalley, so
Mhm.
I had basically a digital copy that I read. But then like right after it came out, I had so many people DMing me from like that episode
Yeah.
who were like, the audio is so good, and it made me like wish I was like, now I wish I experienced it via audio because people love it so much. So
Yeah.
if you guys are audiobook lovers, I'm hearing so much good stuff about that one too.
Yeah.
So definitely go
Yeah.
listen to both of them. And they're very different stories, but yeah, the tones and the voice is kind of similar in a lot of ways
Hmm.
too.
I would agree.
Where can people follow you to stay up to date with everything?
Well, I am always on Instagram, um, at Shelly
Mm-hmm.
Stratton Books. I'm not
Mm-hmm.
on. I've left the land of Twitter. It used to be like the
I
place
don't
that
blame you.
it used to be the place that was so fun, and it's just not fun anymore.
Yeah.
So I'm on Threads. I've been
No.
trying to adapt that more. And you can go to my
Mm-hmm.
website, at ShellyEllisBooks.com. That's a holdover from my romance days, but I think eventually I'm going to have to
Okay.
start getting something for Illustration.